Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Today is the day of Ashura, and so it is natural every Muslim who has love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family to experience and feel grief and sadness at the historic event and the tragedy that took place on this day. But as that grief is experienced, the objectives of Imam Hussein alayhi salam should not be forgotten, and also his vision and his worldview and his thought process and his attitude towards these kinds of things should also be kept to the fore, so that we don't end up doing anything that would not be in line with what the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam stood for. In the last conversation that he had with his sister, Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha, which is reported by Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, he talks about how Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha, when she began to see that her brother was going to be killed, and that he was not going to remain with her, she was inconsolable with grief. And so these are the words that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is reported to have said to her. They're reported by Imam, his son, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. He says that Imam Hussein alayhi salam came up to her and he said, Ya Ukhayya, O my beloved sister, ittaqillah, fear Allah and be conscious of Him, wa ta'azzay bi'aza'illah, and seek consolation in the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, knowing that He is with you, He is there to support you, He is there to offer you all the help and support, whether emotional, whether moral, whether spiritual, all kind of support that you need, Allah is there to offer you. Don't forget that. Allah is there for us. وَعْلَمِ, and then he tries to give her a rational, natural explanation of why she shouldn't be consumed by grief at his departure and at the brutal manner in which all of this is unfolding. He says, وَعْلَمِي أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْأَرْضِ يَمُوتُونَ. He says that you should understand that all the people of this earth have to die someday. وَأَنَّ أَهْلَ السَّمَاءِ لَا يَبْقُونَ. Even the residents and inmates of the heavens, the skies, or the sky, they are also not going to remain. وَأَنَّ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَ اللَّهِ الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْأَرْضَ بِقُدْرَتِهِ. He says that everything is going to be destroyed. Everything is going to perish except for the countenance of Allah and the existence and essence of Allah, who created the earth with His power. وَيَبْعَثُ الْخَلْقَ فَيَعُودُونَ. Then Allah is going to resurrect the creation so they will return. وَهُوَ فَرْدٌ وَحْدَهُ. And He is the one and only who has always been there and will always remain. Everything apart from Him is ephemeral, it is temporary and transient, it is fleeting in nature. Imam alayhi salam says, فَعَزَّاهَا بِهَذَا وَنَحْوِهِ. Yeah, he goes on to say, أَبِي خَيْرٌ مِنِّي. He says, look at my father, Amirul Mu'minin Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam. He was far superior to me. He was better than me. وَأُمِّي خَيْرٌ مِنِّي. And my mother was far superior and better than me. وَأَخِي خَيْرٌ مِنِّي. My brother Al-Hasan alayhi salam was superior to me and better than me. وَلِي وَلَهُمْ وَلِكُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ. And he says, for me, for them, and for every Muslim, there is an example in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So essentially, he's telling her that, look, far greater personalities died or were killed before me. My father, Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam. My brother, Al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salam. My mother was someone who was considered to be the most supreme woman of her time. And yet she died and passed away. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam left this world. They all left this world. And so we have an example in them to show us that no human being is going to live here forever. And so when it's time to leave, there is no need for too much overflow or outpour of grief. And then Imam says, Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, he says, he turned to my sister and said, Ya ukhayya, O my beloved sister, Inni uqsimu alayki fa'abirri qasami. I'm giving you an oath, so fulfill it for me. This is a tradition. In Urdu, as they say, qasam deta hu. It's like when you really want somebody to do something, okay, when you have a request for somebody, that you just absolutely are keen and desperate that they should fulfill it for you. In Arabic, you say it like this, uqsimu alayki. I'm giving you an oath. I'm taking an oath on your behalf that you will do this. Okay, so now it's like you're bound to obey it because the other person has taken an oath on behalf of you that you will do it. So what is Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam so keen and so desperate that his sister should do and honor and observe after him? He says, my request to you, which I'm giving to you under oath, is La tashukki alayya jayba. When I pass away, when I die, do not tear your collar. This was Jahili Arab tradition. It was popular tradition. When someone dies and you're overcome with grief, you tear your clothes out of that extreme grief. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is very much against these kinds of practices. He does not believe in extreme grief or extreme of anything. Islam, and this is an Islamic personality who believed in Islam and who was keen on observing the etiquettes of Islam and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Ultimately, that is what he had gone out to revive. So he's telling his sister that this is what I would want for you after I leave. That La tashukki alayya jayba. Don't do anything extreme. Don't tear your collar. وَلَا تَخْمِشِي عَلَيَّ وَجْهَ. Don't scratch your face. Because when someone so dear to you is martyred and is killed in such a brutal and grotesque, gruesome manner, then the human being, in reaction to an incident like this or event like this, is not able to control themselves. And so a person could go crazy after witnessing a tragedy like this. And that's why Imam Hussein alayhi salam is trying to say that, well, I know that would be the human thing to do, that would be, the natural thing to do, but I don't want you to go for such extreme methods of expressing grief. So وَلَا تَخْمِشِي عَلَيَّ وَجْهَ. Don't scratch your face. وَلَا تَدْعِي عَلَيَّ بِالْوَيْلِ وَالثُّبُورِ إِذَا أَنَا هَلَكْتُ. When I die, I don't want you to call out, with destruction and with woes unto yourself. People, when someone dies, they will say, may destruction befall me, and may I die, and may I... Imam is saying, please don't do any of this. Because this was common and popular among people in that culture. And so Imam Hussein alayhi salam does not want his sister to follow the popular culture that has these extreme elements of grief expression. And then Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam says that he brought Sayyidah Zainab to me and he made her sit beside me. And then he came out of the tent and he gave instructions to his companions. So yes, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, this was his vision, and this is something that would also do us well to keep in mind, is that the grief will always be there. The sadness will never leave the hearts of the lovers of the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt in the Ummah. The grief will always be there, the sadness will always be there, but how that grief is channelized. Imam al-Hussein was against anything that's extreme, and he was also against these popular cultural things, which are not Islamic or which run contrary to the kind of dignity that Islam prescribes for its followers. So this should be observed. Salam ala man ittaba'ah.